So did you ever wonder why we have something like, if I go back to my customer data, why you get a customer number? Why do companies do things like that? And that is actually so that they can combine tables from across databases. So you have a customer number, which is basically just what is called a key. It's a special kind of key. And so this key is the primary key. And then you'd have that key in another table. This is sales. Maybe you have your returns. That key in the other table would be called the foreign key. And those two keys you can use to match up and combine the data. And so a lot of times companies will have databases of sales, of warranties, of returns, and they'll all have different data in it, but it'll all be related. And a customer number is an easy way to relate the data back together. And so we can use that in our pivot tables and put a bunch of tables together. So I did go and we created this pivot table and we put it into our data model. Now, we can create a pivot table from the data model of the Excel sheet, and that would bring in all these different sheets of data. So let's say that we wanted to take customer data 1 and combine it with customer data 2. Now, I will point out, I just threw these data sets together. The key, it doesn't really have a key that works between the two just because of the way the numbers are together. So this is just kind of an example of how to put the stuff together. All right, so what do? Well, we either make a pivot table with this separate set of data, and then we add it to the data model, or if we create it as a table, it will automatically be added to the data model. How do we do that? So we go to Insert, and we're going to be using this Tables button. Now, just like before, if we're clicked out here, it's going to ask us to highlight things, but if we drop our cursor inside the data, it will automatically select it. So if I click on if I click on Table, we will get this. Notice it has selected the data A1 to J194. This little thing is important. My table has headers. We're going to see this all the time in Excel, and that just means that we have the first row of data is going to be words. And we're constantly telling Excel when we have headers, because if we try to run stats on words, it doesn't work. So I'm going to go and say OK. And so now you can see that, hey, we've got some color coding in it. This has been created as a table. We can give it up a name up here, and we'll call this day _2 because we can't have any spaces, so we have to use underscores. And we actually have these little filter buttons that the table immediately puts in. So we'll go to description so we see all the stuff that we've seen from our tables before. This is now in our data model. We can build a pivot table now using the data model. Go to Insert. Now, on the computers in the lab, you will hit Pivot Table, and you will see the options once again for Table Range, External Data Source, and Data Model. My version's slightly different, so I have to do it from here, but I'm going to do the same thing you would do, and I'm going to pick Data Model, and then it's going to ask me, where do I want to put the pivot table? Once again, this box will look a little bit different from yours because you will have that selection that I had in the top. This is the part that will be in the middle, and then the part at the bottom that says adding it to the data model will be grayed out. So I'm going to do this on a new worksheet just like I did with my original pivot table. And now you can see that over here I've got two sets of data to put together. I have my range, which was my first pivot table, and day 2, the table that I just made. Now, if this was set up right, we'd be able to go up here to relationships, and we would be able to add a relationship saying, hey, pick this table and then use the customer name as the key, and the table that it's related to is this one, and that we would we'd pick the related column. This is not going to work because the data is not set up right, and it will tell you. In fact, here, I'll run it right now, and it will say that, hey, this doesn't work, they have duplicate values, because once again, it's not set up for it. When you do this within your homework assignment, it's going to auto-find those relationships. You're not going to have to dictate them. You're just going to put the data together and it's going to work. And what that's going to allow you to do is you're going to be able to pull data from multiple different tables that you have and get the data all in one. I believe it's something with Lego pieces, if I remember correctly. Anyway, but this is how we put together different pivot tables into one big table. And this is something you will be doing in your homework. And so with that, if you have any questions, please let me know.